Why can't we just have proof of stake?
Oh, it's just the same. It's just Fiat 2.0. Like it's really no different. It's those who have closest to the money printer get the most rewards. Literally, I literally cannot afford it. I can't afford food. At that point, it's too fucking late. Like you should have been saying 5 years ago when you were saying, "Oh, it's getting expensive." You should have then been saying to yourself, "Why is it getting expensive?" I'll happily have that conversation with anyone, but I'm not having it with someone who isn't ready to have the conversation. It's just a waste of my time. I can better point my resources elsewhere, but I've certainly got plenty of time to speak to people who are willing to have that conversation.
Joining us today, we have the co-founder of Bitcoin Alive, Australia's premier Bitcoin-only conference. Now, Chris entered Bitcoin in 2012 and potentially has a bad memory, so may or may not have spent some time on Silk Road back in the day. I may have as well, but I forget these things too. Now, Chris really started to take this seriously back in 2016. Then he broke his leg in 2016. Listen, I'm not sure if this was his left, his right, or his middle leg. Either way, I believe that led to the founding of CoinStop, an Australian hardware wallet reseller with some mates. Chris, Bitcoin Alive 2023 was a massive success. What is in store for Bitcoin Alive 2024?
Oh, we're going bigger and better. That's the only way to do it, right? You got to improve on what you did the subsequent years. So I'm really excited. We can't give away too much because, well, one, we're still in the phase of putting it all together, but two, we've got to keep some surprises. But definitely, if anyone that attended last year, you can speak to them. I'm sure they'd have hopefully only good things to say about the experience they had. And, we put that together in about 4.5 months. We've now got 12 months to put that together, although time is ticking. So I'm hoping that, we can at least have, a 50%, if not a larger gain on the experience for all the punters.
I'm putting you on the spot, but if you can organise a discount code or whatever, if that's possible, I'll link that below for cheap tickets. So check that out. Fuck yeah. Awesome. Anyway, thanks very much, Chris, for that. So most Bitcoin podcasts, like you're saying, they rinse and repeat. Let's talk about Australiana stuff. You love camping, you love outdoors, you're a bit of a soccer fanatic. That sounds like how maybe potentially you broke your leg, or maybe there's football as well. But what's it like? Like, Bitcoin's digital, it's online. We spend a lot of time on Twitter, on YouTube, listening to these podcasts. But what's your life look like outside of Bitcoin or alongside Bitcoin with the camping? And also, I'm a lover of dogs. I know you're a massive lover of dogs as well. Can you dive into that for us? Let's make this a little bit personal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a huge sports fan. Have been my entire life. I've played almost any sport under the sun. Grew up playing soccer. Played volleyball semi-professionally in my younger years. Have played AFL, which is how I broke my leg.
Which leg?
Now playing baseball. It was the left leg. It was
not the middle one.
We can dive into that a little bit. So I'm not a big guy. Anyone that's met me knows I'm pretty thin. I've been thin my whole life. I'm relatively tall, 6 foot barely if I'm rounding up, but I'm not a huge guy. And so contact sports have never been kind of my cup of tea per se. But I moved to Melbourne in 2016, looking for a change. My background was mechanical engineering and kind of got made redundant at that last gig I had, which was at a really, really large aluminium company. Yeah. And I kind of had a crossroads moment where I was like, what do I do with my life? So I said, I'm going to move to Melbourne. And I moved to Melbourne, and that's kind of where I went down the whole entrepreneurial rabbit hole. And I thought, I'm in Melbourne. What sport do they play here? AFL. So I'll give it a go. It's kind of on the border of what's too much contact for me, but I thought I'll give it a go because, I'm fairly quick and, I play low division, so I don't have to get, too in the guts of it all. Yeah. But in my third game of footy, I went up for a mark and I took the mark. And then as I came down, I landed on, so a lot of the ovals around, at least in amateur footy, there'll be like cricket ovals in the summer and football ovals in the winter. And so there's this artificial cricket pitch in the middle of the oval that, you kind of have to be careful of. And so I went up for the mark and I came down on that artificial cricket pitch. And anyone that's played on these pitches with, say, studded boots would know that the studs just don't grip, that you just slip. And so as I came down on my own weight, I slipped on one foot and then came down on my other foot and broke my own leg, which was pretty horrific. And like, no one touched me. Like I said to myself, if some big dude, 120 kilo guy, snaps me in half, then I'll know it's not the sport for me. But yeah, in my third game, I broke my own leg. which was pretty shit. But success story is, 9 weeks later, after I had kind of, I was hospitalized. I had a cast and I was immobilized for 9 weeks. I couldn't go to work. I was still working a Fiat job in a warehouse, just doing shit work. At the same time, CoinStop was starting up. So we'd started that a few months earlier. The early signs of the success were starting to form. And so I thought, here's another opportunity for me. It's a bit of a blessing in disguise. Broke my leg, can't go to work, but now I have all this time to sit on my laptop and work on CoinStop. And that was kind of the final straw for me. I was like, that's it. I'm never going back to working for the man, if you want to call it, in hot, sweaty factories. And that was kind of the silver lining in it all. And to top it off, I actually made it back that season and
wow.
and kicked a few goals at the end of the year, and the following year we actually lifted the flag. So I really enjoyed footy, even though I broke my leg and got concussed one time. It's a bit of a rough sport, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And I've since continued playing sport. I now play soccer, I play baseball, I rock climb. I just love getting out there and being active. Maybe that's why I've been thin my whole life. But I enjoy the social side of it. Most of the sports I play are team-based sports. I don't mind. I've played tennis before. I've played 10-pin bowling. Again, any sport under the sun, I've probably played it. But the ones that really, really get me going are the team-based sports. So, baseball, soccer, footy. I just enjoy the camaraderie, the after-sport beers, the jokes, the banter, the making friends, all that sort of stuff. I'm a social creature.
So you're doing some really exciting things with BitRefill as well. BitRefill, absolutely incredible. A good way to be able to use Bitcoin or even crypto to be able to buy gift cards and things like that. Can you dive into what BitRefill is, sort of their story, and then how you joined their team and what you're doing with them here in Australia, and just like really show like how fucking great they are. Like they're absolutely incredible. And if you haven't heard about BitRefill, we'll link their links below, because it is one of the best Bitcoin crypto fiat tools. Anyway, over to you.
Yes, BitRefill is essentially a bridge that helps connect kind of regular retailers that don't have anything to do with Bitcoin or crypto to people who have that stuff and want to spend it. So, the example that I typically use is, imagine you wanted to buy a new TV, or you wanted to catch an Uber on the way home, and you wanted to pay for either of those things using Bitcoin. Now, obviously, JB Hi-Fi or Good Guys or Harvey Norman or any of these tech retailers don't natively accept Bitcoin. Maybe they will in the future. We can surely hope that, and we can kind of try to nudge them along. But at the end of the day, these are really large corporations that are slow moving and unlikely to start accepting Bitcoin anytime soon. So BitRefill is essentially the largest e-commerce platform in the world when it comes to crypto, and it helps bridge that gap through the means of gift cards and other digital goods. So you can come to BitRefill and you can, let's say you've gone down to JB Hi-Fi and you've got, I want that new TV to replace the old one. It's $500, whatever it is. You can then jump on to bitrefill.com, or you can download the app and have it in your pocket. And you can buy a JB Hi-Fi gift card for $500. BitRefill will then, take the spot rate of Bitcoin and say, here's how much Bitcoin you owe us. There's no markup on that. There's no hidden spread or any fees or anything like that. It's genuine spot rate. And then you can purchase that TV using Bitcoin via the means of that JB Hi-Fi gift card. And that's pretty cool, because that's not really possible otherwise. And so the example I shared with you, like before we jumped on this call, was I was actually trying to buy these headphones using Bitcoin, and obviously nowhere in Australia accepts Bitcoin natively that sells Bose headphones. And so, BitRefill is that bridge. I can go to BitRefill, I can buy the JB Hi-Fi gift card for $100 or whatever it is, take it down to the local store or even online, buy my headphones, give them the gift card, and they have no idea. There's other side benefits, of course. Now I'm a little bit more private as well. JB Hi-Fi doesn't need to know, and nor does my bank need to know where I'm spending my money.
Where do you sort of see us heading over the next couple of years? Are we going to get more friendly, and people like Alex going to wake the population up, or there's just too much noise, and even the signal that people like him are sending out is just going to get lost?
To be honest, I am familiar with Alex. I don't know him that well, and I haven't listened to much of his stuff, but I've seen him pop up, and my just high level understanding of him is that he probably gets it, although he maybe doesn't understand Bitcoin to the depths that he needs to in order to connect all of the dots. But yeah, maybe we could reach out and kind of had that conversation with him. Thanks for mentioning that and recommending. We can certainly look into it. And obviously, we need someone to infiltrate that system,
Yeah.
in order to have those discussions. I don't have a lot of optimism. It's kind of an ebbs and flows where you're like really pessimistic about it, and then you're really optimistic. At the end of the day, nothing can stop Bitcoin, as Michael Dunworth says. We don't have a technology on Earth or in the galaxy or even in the solar system that can stop Bitcoin. And so until that changes, I don't really see. I can't stop it. You can't stop it. I can unplug my node, but that's not going to do much. Someone else will just plug theirs in. So, I hope there are some people that are starting to understand it. There's a couple of other senators that are all down the blockchain and shitcoin rabbit hole, and that's a shame because they've obviously been co-opted by the organizations who have that narrative and sell it. Probably most notably people like Blockchain Australia. Not a huge fan of them. I know a lot of the people involved, and some of them are good people, but they're just on the wrong path. Lobbying people like Senator Bragg to put together blockchain papers and all. He put it through a legislation, I think it was a month or two ago, and it just got thrown straight into the bin, and rightfully so. It was terrible. And I think that's just him saying, hey, I'm doing something. Here's a piece of legislation, knowing that it's probably never going to get through anyway. I would love to see that all cleansed and the focus be put solely back on Bitcoin. It just takes time to understand it to these depths. I went down the shitcoin rabbit hole because I was immature and green and didn't understand economics and all of the really finer details of what makes Bitcoin special and what makes it separate from the rest. And now I get that. I put in the work. You can't cheat that. Then you just simply have to put in the work. That's the currency of Bitcoin. It's proof of work. People love to tell you can do proof of stake and proof of importance and proof of this, proof of that. But the only proof is that it's all shit. It's just terrible. And at the end of the day, you can't cheat work. And that's, Bitcoin's, as you've got in the background there, TikTok next block. That's run true since 2009, and I dare say will ring true in 2140. So yeah, I'm on the fence. It's depends on what side of the bed I wake up. If I'm on the optimistic side or the pessimistic side, I don't really see much hope, I guess, in the short term for Australia. Where, like I said, we're too kind of comfortable knowing that the system works and perpetuating that broken system. We're just going to keep kicking the can down the road, and once we reach the can, we'll just print more road and kick the can further. And eventually, you can't do that. You will implode and devalue the currency to oblivion, and that's the path we're on. I don't like it. I can't personally change it, but my protest is that I'm opting out and I'm using Bitcoin, and I'm trying to help educate others to take that leap as well. Whether that's coming to Bitcoin Alive and speaking and hearing all the amazing Bitcoin talent we have here. I welcome everyone to do that. Of course, there's arguably no better place to get that level of Bitcoin knowledge in one room for one day. That's just excellent. But there are podcasts, there is an endless amount of information and local meetups and the Bush Bash. There's so many places you can learn this stuff now that you can take shortcuts. It's taken me probably 100,000 hours of Bitcoin research and learning to get to this level of understanding. But that's because I started in 2010. And it took me 6 years to even pick up the white paper. People can fast forward and fast track that learning experience now because we have so much great knowledge and so many great minds in Bitcoin that understand it and that can articulate it much easier than what it was back then.
Yeah. I think definitely it's a lot easier. Something that I bring up all the time is I give out this book, The Bitcoin Standard, to so many people, and 7 out of 10 people, literally 70%, will hand it back and it's too big. So this is why now Beers for Bitcoin, Daz, good friend of both of ours, it's so small, it's so easy, but it's such a good solid foundation. And then people can just race through this literally in a day or a weekend, and then they can, once they get that solid foundation, I think then they'll start literally moving on to the Bitcoin Standard, all the Safe Dean's books, and then Jeff Booth, and they can go down the rabbit hole. But what I guess I'm trying to piggyback on is you do need to put in the proof of work to be able to understand it. But it's easier to be able to do that work because we have such great minds here in Australia, everywhere in the world, that are breaking it down simply, like keep it simple, stupid, or keep it, KISS. So they're making it super simple for everyone to be able to understand, but it is still going to take time, education, attending events, reading, putting in the work as well. Something that you said earlier is like proof of stake shit. Like every Bitcoiner agrees with that, and proof of work is what's required. Why can't we just have proof of stake?
Oh, it's just the same. It's just Fiat 2.0. Like it's really no different. It's those who have closest to the money printer get the most rewards. So you take Ethereum, for example, because it's the biggest pile of shit out there. 70% of it was pre-mined and given to a handful of people, and now they effectively have the largest wallets and they get the biggest say. Michael Saylor has 150,000 plus Bitcoin. He has no extra say than what he has over you and I or anyone that has 0.0001 of a Bitcoin. Yeah. Everyone has the exact same level of say. You run a node for a couple of $100 and if Michael's not, you've arguably got more say and he's got way more Bitcoin. Like it's a far more equitable system. And yeah, like we can talk about this for ages, but I don't particularly enjoy it because it's just a waste of time. Obviously, like, we want to steer people away from it. Yeah. But sometimes, I'm a big fan of also just natural selection. That's how we got here biologically. Yeah. And so if people want to fucking climb up Mount Stupid to find out that there's no oxygen up there, then sort of let them. Yeah. The smart ones will come down. Yeah. And they'll, come back down to ground level. The dumb ones will die up top because they'll run out of air. So yeah, like it's just Fiat 2.0 reinvented with some new marketing bells and whistles. It's not revolutionary in any capacity at all. Yeah. And we've only seen Ethereum kind of go down and down in every metric since the merge, which is effectively a hard fork. But again, the marketing department's nice and strong over there, and a merge sounds a lot sexier than a hard fork. Yeah. But the reality is, they changed the rules. Yeah. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about Bitcoin is the rules don't change. There's a level of predictability when it comes to Bitcoin. We know the issuance 10 minutes from now, 2 hours from now, 10 years and 100 years from now. Yeah. Can't say the same about any other asset in human history. I don't know how much gold there's going to be. We don't even know how much gold there is right now. We have estimates, but estimates don't cut it. We want definitive things. Like, how can you run a global economy when you're just guessing? Like, that's just not how it should be. That's not sound money. That's not hard money. And so, Bitcoin is the hardest and the soundest money that we've ever known. It improves on gold in every capacity. Gold was, the next best up until Bitcoin was created, and now we have Bitcoin. And so it's the digital energy for the future. We're obviously moving towards more digital. The internet was part of that, and I think the internet was lacking a native currency, and now we have it. And that's kind of the piece that I think a lot of people haven't yet realized is that, I always come back to this, and I genuinely do believe this. The internet was so impactful for humanity. Like, we turn the internet off now, I think people would lose their fucking minds. We wouldn't know how to put food on our table. We wouldn't know how to, it'd be chaos, right? It's not something I want to really imagine. But I actually think Bitcoin is going to be more important and more impactful than the internet. And I don't say that lightly because I know how impactful the internet has been, both to myself, but also more broadly speaking to every human on planet Earth. And so, we're just 15 years in. Like, we need to kind of lower our time preference and be a little patient. Something that Bitcoin's taught me, and I actually tweeted this the other day. Bitcoin, I was a very, very impatient man when I was younger. I wanted everything now. I was, on the road, I'd fucking get mad because people were slow. Now I'm just like, it's all good. Like, it's all good. Like, it's a long road. You got to lower that time preference. We're not going to solve everything today or tomorrow or next week, but as long as we're chipping away and we're on the right path, then that's eventually going to get there. It's just nothing can stop it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Bitcoin's been around for quite a while now, like 14, 15 years. And people say, I won't talk about the price because I know that you're not looking at the price, but people, quote unquote, will say it's too expensive and they've missed the boat. What would be your argument back to that? And, you know, like an ounce of gold's cheaper than buying a single Bitcoin. So why should they choose, I guess, Bitcoin now? And what's your argument to Bitcoin's too expensive at the minute, even though, you know, it's a, I won't even refer to this price. We'll just cut it there.
Yeah, look, it just shows a lack of understanding on economic principles, on sound money, on a lot of things, to be honest. And I don't blame them. We don't get taught this. You have to learn this. It has to almost become like a hobby. If you know, even at an economics school or go to university and get an economics degree, they don't teach you these things. They teach you Keynesian bullshit economics, and that's just the wrong stuff. And you know, I'm kind of blessed that I didn't learn those things because I now don't have to unlearn them. For a lot of people, it's a lot of unlearning. You know, what they've been told growing up from their family, from, you know, the past generations, all that shit's wrong. The shit they see on mainstream media, it's all wrong, but they lap it up. Like, you know, most people don't have the time, don't have the, I guess, the desire to kind of do the work. Again, it keeps coming back to, you got to put in the work. You can't cheat the system. That's the humbling part of Bitcoin. You know, you can fake it till you make it in most industries, but you can't fake it in Bitcoin. You'll be found out very quickly. And that's one of the beautiful things I like about it as well. It keeps you in check. It keeps you honest. Everyone's playing by the same rules. And yeah, you've just got to put in the work to understand these things. It takes time. Like we said earlier, there's a lot of resources out there. Just start asking questions. What I've found as well is, at least at this early stage of Bitcoin, a lot of the Bitcoiners come from a engineering type background. That's not to say they all do, but a lot do. And I think that's perhaps down to the fact that they understand logic and critical thinking. Those are perhaps somewhat prerequisites to understanding Bitcoin to the depths that, you know, the Bitcoiners do. A lot of people just simply don't have those skills, never learnt them through school. Again, it's a lot bigger than simply saying one thing or the other thing. Like, you know, it's 15 years of shit schooling that teaches us crap skills that don't translate to real world stuff. You know, beyond mathematics and sort of comprehension in English, a lot of the other stuff is simply noise. And that's not to say they're not important. You know, people can be historians and go down that rabbit hole, but as an 8-year-old, I probably don't need to be knowing a lot of that crap. I'd rather be learning about sound money principles and how the world works and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not easy. Like, I say all this stuff like it's just common knowledge, but it's not. I've had to learn this shit over the last 15 years as well. And I'm still learning. I'm still trying to sharpen my own understanding of what's going on. A lot of things I have, you know, a lot of things that I hold as opinions are probably wrong, but that's also the beauty of it as well. I like being wrong. Being wrong means that I've now learnt what's right. And a lot of people perhaps are a little bit too ego to, like,
well, that's the school system too, isn't it? Like, everyone's a winner and you're either, like, you have to be right. You're not allowed to be wrong or whatever. Like, it has to be what they want and you need to give it to them the way you want. And if you're wrong, you're a failure. Whereas, like, for yourself, you're an entrepreneur and you want to fail.
Failing is the best.
Yeah, bro. You want to just fail forward and just keep failing and failing and failing and failing. Like Thomas Edison, 10,000 times he tried to create the light bulb and then bang. Like, if he wasn't willing to fail to be able to fuck up, where would we be right now? You know, one thing I just want to push back on a little bit, because the school system, the indoctrination, when I talk to my nephews and stuff, and I'm sure their parents don't like it, what I see the benefit of schooling is they should learn basic math, basic English. The most important thing, though, is to be able to get along, teamwork and communication. If they can take that away from school, they can forget the rest, because the rest of it's fucking noise. But if you can learn how to learn, then you can go down whatever rabbit hole that interests you, that fills you with purpose. But because we have that 12, 15 years worth of indoctrination. And then people go and they work a fucking bullshit Fiat job and they're running this hamster wheel and they're so busy. And Bitcoin does take, at least 100 hours to be able to get a fairly sound understanding. And that's why they keep handing back the Bitcoin standard to me. It's too much. I don't have the time for that. I'm not interested. How can we start to change this and get them like, for me, I'm finding the inflation as a talking point's really good, like especially with electricity going up 20-25% in the last quarter. That was like a huge jump that really woke people up. But do you have other ways where you can just shake people and be like, I don't give a fuck if you don't have the time. You need to make the time in your life because it's either Bitcoin and freedom or you're fucked and it's slavery. That's what I think and that's what I believe. And I know that may be a little bit intense, a little bit toxic. I don't give a fuck. I just want people to wake the fuck up and understand this because it's important. Now, do you have maybe a softer approach or what would be your approach just to get people to just fucking wake up and pay attention?
Well, this is kind of what I was touching on earlier, right? Like we're in the state where we kind of get it already, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And so, talking points like inflation and the cost of living, these are great things to kind of try to prime people to open up their mind and their eyes. But ultimately, they still need to be willing. Like, how many times have people gone, oh, fuck, petrol's expensive lately? And then that's kind of the end of the conversation. Like they understand the symptom, but they don't understand how they got to that symptom or why it's expensive. They just like to complain that it is.
Yeah.
It's like, let's go back and understand how we got to these crazy petrol prices and why they're going to continue to go up. Not just, it sucks that they're up.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the day. How about that weather? It's looking pretty good. Like these are the depths of the conversations I have with normies when I used to work in normie land.
Yeah.
You come in every day and goes, oh fuck, the weather's good today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but the weather's there fucking every day. There are bigger problems, really. And that's kind of the cognitive dissonance of the vast population is they just don't give a fuck. They are happy staying in their lane. They're not ready for the accountability, the responsibility to take control of their lives. And this is where I come back to, it's kind of natural selection. Like, those of us that do will understand it and will rise and will, become stronger men and stronger women and help shape the future of what the earth should look like. The rest of them will, not perish in the sense of pass away. Well, we all will. We're all going to die eventually, but they just simply won't make it out. And at some point, the conversation will steer to, oh God, petrol prices are expensive. To I can't afford petrol. Literally, I literally cannot afford it.
Yeah.
I can't afford food. At that point, it's too fucking late.
Yeah.
Like you should have been saying 5 years ago when you were saying, oh, it's getting expensive. You should have then been saying to yourself, why is it getting expensive? I'll happily have that conversation with anyone, but I'm not having it with someone who isn't ready to have the conversation. It's just a waste of my time. I can better point my resources elsewhere, but I've certainly got plenty of time to speak to people who are willing to have that conversation. And it's important. You need to open up your eyes. For me, I think I come from a background of being very critical and very open-minded, and certainly questioning everything. I remember being a teenager, staying up watching all sorts of conspiracy theory stories. And largely, many of them are probably bullshit, or maybe some of them are actually false flag attacks and true. But the point is that I questioned everything, and I still do to this date. And that's the key element I think people need to kind of get into their tool chest, is just question everything, absolutely everything. Don't just take things for their word. Don't even take me for my word. Any of the things I'm saying here, fact check it. Go back, understand it. Understand why I've made this point. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, and I'll fucking shake your hand and say, fuck yeah. Now we know the right answer. Like that's being willing to be wrong, I think is important.
And that is pushing people to put in the proof of work, which is good. And then you're going to respect them even more as well, which is absolutely great. When I was doing the research for this interview, I came across something called Alpha Hash Rate, I believe, which is a startup. Hopefully I've got that right. Can you dive into sort of what that is? I know absolutely nothing about it, but I'm interested in all things, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. But look, to be fair, there's not a lot going on there currently, but I can give you the backstory of what it was trying to be. So I think it was about almost 2 years ago, was kind of wanting to get back into the Bitcoin mining sort of space. I understand it fairly well, but I'm not a miner myself. I've dabbled with little bits and pieces here and there. And I came across kind of what most people would probably heard of Compass mining, that kind of hosted mining business model. And I thought that's pretty cool, I guess, kind of. In hindsight, we know it's not that cool, and it has lots of problems. But on the surface level, I thought it was an interesting model. I didn't want to use them because I saw the holes, and I saw the risks. And in hindsight, we've seen those risks unfold, and many customers have gotten wrecked because of it. But basically, I wanted to try to replicate that and fix some of the shortcomings of their model, but do it here in Australia, because we're a very rich kind of country when it comes to resources. Most notably, sun, uranium. We've got resources, and we should be using them wisely instead of exporting them to other places.
Yeah.
And so it feels like there's a massive untapped potential for Australia to really take Bitcoin mining, understand it, and make it a central part of our identity. Kind of like how coal mining was 20 years ago. It was the bee's knees of our economy. The lefties have kind of taken over and made that a dirty industry. But Bitcoin mining can be the replacement, in my opinion. And so Alpha Hash Rate was essentially a Bitcoin mining startup to try help push that needle along.
Yeah.
Lucky enough to have some friends who are right into the energy side of things. Had a friend in South Australia who's a kind of energy guy, runs an energy company and generates a lot of energy predominantly through solar panels. So I thought, okay, there's an opportunity to kind of connect some of those dots and help other Australian Bitcoin miners maybe get a bit of exposure to this and help steer that conversation that, hey, we're sitting on this massive opportunity in Australia that could really transform our economy and all sorts of things. But yeah, the winter of last year was pretty brutal. South Australia's obviously already got its own problems when it comes to the energy market. It's largely disconnected from the East Coast, although there are projects that trying to resolve that. It has a lot of volatility, and yeah, it's problematic. So that kind of put a bit of a stop in the road for that project. And like you touched on earlier, electricity prices have gone up 25% just in this quarter. They've gone up probably close to 50% over the last 12 months, and I don't see them really slowing down, which is really bizarre because we're sitting on one of the largest depositories of uranium, and we could be having some world-class nuclear power plants in Australia, but again, the agenda and the mainstream media don't like to touch nuclear, even though it is one of the solutions to the problems that they like to perpetuate.
It's insane, right? Like we could just have one massive nuclear power plant in the middle of Australia, away from absolutely everywhere, and connect the whole continent, and they're just not willing to do it.
The one thing that blew my mind that I didn't even know, but like a lot of the submarines, like the war submarines. I'm not sure if it's in the Australian ones, but definitely the US ones. But I assume the Australian ones too. Please fact check me on this. But they have nuclear reactors in these submarines to power the submarines, so they can literally indefinitely stay underground or underwater for months on end. And these things are supposed to be used for battle, like for literally going through the oceans and shooting rockets at each other. And they have a fucking nuclear reactor sitting on them. And from my understanding, there's never been an accident in the US cohort of those submarines because of a leak or an explosion or a nuclear reactor. Like everyone's still, obviously shocking what happened in history with some of the nuclear meltdowns and all that sort of stuff. But we've learned a lot since then. It's not the same technology of 50 years ago. It's come a long way, and we kind of need to shake those cobwebs out and actually start to look into nuclear energy, because it is the solution to the problems that we all have. Except no one it's not politically sexy to touch. And until it becomes politically sexy to touch, I don't think anyone's going to touch it. But yeah, Alpha Hash Rate, it's effectively on pause or not going ahead. I realized it's a fucking massive effort. Like I said to you earlier, like my template for creating businesses is look for a problem of my own, see if a solution exists. If it doesn't exist or it's subpar, build a better solution. And so that's what I was trying to do with Alpha Hash Rate. we have other people doing it in Australia as well, which is great. We mentioned Pierre's, who's one of the leading Bitcoin miners and far better and far smarter than me in that regard. So hopefully they can pick up the baton where I wasn't able to run with it. At the end of the day, I stretch myself too thin as well. I can't possibly do everything. But I'm keen to see that happen. And if someone can put together a service that checks those boxes, then they'll have my sats, because I think getting more hash rate down under is important and crucial. If only the government could sort of wake up to that fact, we could become a leading powerhouse in that regard.
Yeah, as we should. For everyone, for anyone that's interested, I guess, in mining in Australia, I have got that video with Piers from MineRack out there. So watch that. Like, Australian energy rate is, I think, like 138 out of 190. So like, we literally are one of the most expensive places in the entire world. Our energy rate's like 26 cents a kilowatt, and it continues to keep going
26
up
cents
as well.
That's
so
cheap.
Yeah,
I called up AGL yesterday and for my dad, and he's on 42 cents a kilowatt hour.
Holy
yeah,
fuck.
42.
Maybe, and maybe it's gone up since when I was looking at it. That's when I was researching, when I sat down with Piers. So maybe I need to update that thumbnail. But like, it's literally crazy here, and we have so much like natural resources and nuclear as well. Just talking about submarines, when I was little, I must have been about like 13 or 14 years old, and I don't know if it is an Australian submarine or a US submarine, but it was a nuclear powered submarine, and I grew up in Cairns, and it pulled into the port there, and I lined up for about like 7 hours or something, and then they closed the tour, so I didn't get to walk around inside it, unfortunately. Like, waited all day. But yeah. But it was definitely a nuclear-powered submarine, and that's the draw card to be able to jump in there and have a look at it. Couple of questions that I'm interested in, I think about quite a lot. What do you think about Binance, and if they fail, what happens? Does it set Bitcoin back, or it's just good for the space and we get rid of all the fucking shit that's out there?
I've been calling Binance to zero for a couple of years. Again, natural selection. It's, in my opinion, it's just better to rip the Band-Aid off so we can start to heal. And I don't think Binance is a good actor. You could, of course, there's the argument that they've helped so many more people than anyone else. This is the same argument Coinbase has, right? Like, oh, they've onboarded so many more Bitcoiners. Yeah, but think about all the people they've wrecked along the way and the pockets that they've lined internally in doing so. I'd rather have a slow and steady kind of rise than oh, fuck yeah, we've all gone up. Oh shit, we did something stupid, crash back down. Like, there's, it just paints a bad picture on the entire industry, and Bitcoin gets lumped into that. Like, the minute an exchange gets hacked, the headline is Bitcoin exchange is hacked. You read into the finer details, not a single cent of Bitcoin was taken. It's all the shit coins that were taken, right? So Binance to zero for me. It's probably going to be painful, but so is ripping fiat out of the system. It just has to happen. Like, this is what, like, why kick the can down the road just so we can continue on the road when we know there's a brick wall at the end that we're going to go head first into? And, the sooner we run into that brick wall, the sooner we can start to heal and to start to fix the problems. And so, I can't say I'm a huge fan of Binance in that sense, or any of these shitcoin exchanges. Pick your flavor, right? Like, they're getting hacked on a daily basis. I got an email this morning that another exchange was hacked for fucking 70 million. And again, it's never any Bitcoin it's very rarely any Bitcoin stolen, because, Bitcoin is fucking encrypted very strongly compared to these experiments that, slap it all together and there's holes in the code left, right, and center.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. I just want to shout out Amber App's a good Australian Bitcoin-only app. Do you have any other recommendations for Bitcoin-only apps, I guess, for the Australian audience?
Yeah.
Or even the worldwide audience?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's plenty of, we're blessed to have sort of 3 really good Bitcoin-only options for Australians. You mentioned Amber App, great service, one that I've used for many years. Bitaroo is another Aussie-based Bitcoin-only exchange. And then you got Hardblock, run by Daniel. Wilczynski over in Adelaide been running for many years without fault. Like, these shitcoin exchanges come and go, and they get their money, they piss off, they get hacked, they rug you, whatever they do to exit. But the Bitcoin ones are just staying humble and just building and providing value. It's not sexy. It's They don't make a lot of noise about it, but it works, and you get what you want. So yeah, those are the three that I recommend. Obviously, there's Bitcoin exchanges overseas, but that probably is more problematic for Aussies in terms of actually acquiring sats. I try to support Aussie businesses wherever possible because I want to see that economic activity happen in this country. I'm Australian, so
Yeah.
I would like to see our country prosper. I don't have a lot of hope because the country's run by clowns, but we just keep chipping away. We keep doing our thing, and eventually they'll wake up. Like, nothing can stop it. So as long as we're on the right horse, we're going to get to the finish line.
Yep. So talking about Australia and Bitcoin, I'm part of the referral program for the Bitcoin Advisor. You're on the Bitcoin Advisor team. Great people. Peter Dunworth, Andy, Luke Broyles has joined as well. Really integral people in the space. The Bitcoin Advisor is potentially their service not for everyone. It may be for the people that have been in Bitcoin since like 2012, 2015, 2017. But it also still could be. What's your involvement with them? What drew you to them? How are they helping people? Can you just sort of talk about how that may be beneficial for someone? And they're not just Australia, they're worldwide as well. But how something like that, because all the time we hear not your keys, not your coins, and they talk about collaborative custody, inheritance planning and stuff. But if you can just sort of talk about a little bit about your involvement, what you think about the team, why you've joined up with them, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I have a lot of time for Pete and Andy. Fucking love those guys. They're just fantastic humans. And Pete's been trying to twist my arm for a couple of months. Obviously, he knows my background. Funny story, Pete's actually one of our oldest customers and most loyal customers over at CoinStop. He's been buying hardware wallets off us for 5 years, and I didn't know him back then. He was sort of a closet Bitcoiner. He's obviously since come out, and he's very public, and he's on the podcast circuit, and rightfully so. His mind is too good to be kept in the closet, so I'm glad to see he's now out there. But he's been helping his other business, which is Net Worth Advisors, family office of high net worth clients. He's been helping them stack sats and get them into hardware wallets, and so he's been a customer of ours. I remember seeing his email pop up, Peter Dunworth at Net Worth Advisors or whatever, and thinking, this guy buying 10 wallets every couple of months, he's not obviously doing this for himself. There's no one in human history needs to have 100 hardware wallets. What's going on? And so it's kind of funny.
Unless you're Michael Saylor.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that, fast forward to sort of now that, we've made that connection. We're good friends, and now we work together, and it's just like, it was perhaps always meant to be. We just didn't cross paths, closely enough. But the Bitcoin Advisor is great. I've been a massive, security buff, arguably longer than anyone in this country, given CoinStop was the first hardware wallet reseller in the country. I've helped tens of thousands of people get their coins off exchanges and off shit wallets like hot wallets and into hardware wallets for 7 years plus. And Pete knows that, so he has been bugging me to join the team and to try to understand what he's come up with the collaborative custody model. It took me a bit of time to come around to it. Being kind of hardcore, not your keys, not your coins kind of guy, I needed to really be taken along that journey to understand what exactly is the offering. How does it fix some of the shortcomings of a single seed storage solution? And so he was great in holding me through that journey and answering all my questions. I poked holes at the model for weeks until effectively I couldn't poke holes anymore. And I said, all right, well, I'm in. I get it now. And, like you said, it's not for everyone. It's probably not going to appease the hardcore maxis who are like, no, not your keys, not your coins. I don't trust anyone. They probably don't even trust their own family. But at the end of the day, if you walk out on the road and you get hit by a bus, are you confident that your Bitcoin is going to go to where where you want it to go. Some people may say,
Yeah,
I
where
want
it
it to
needs
come
to
to
go.
the grave with me. Fair enough. That's a noble cause. Other people might say, nah, that'll be a bit of a waste of all that time and energy spent stacking sats if it just goes to nowhere. I'd love it to go to my wife
Yeah.
or my kids, your inheritance, your beneficiaries. And so that's kind of one of the things that the collaborative custody model assists with, is it assists from, a single point of failure. If my seed phrase or my hardware wallet goes missing or my house burns down, under the collaborative custody model, you haven't lost all your sats. The Bitcoin advisor has a default key, and then the software service provider has a default key. And working with the client, we can help recreate that vault and get the keys restored back to a 2 or 3 collaborative model. And we've helped. It's kind of the shit things to talk about, and we always have this conversation with clients. It's a bit dark. No one likes to think about dying or getting sick or any of those things. But at the end of the day, I haven't met anyone that's human that has lived longer than 120 odd years or whatever it is. Most people die well before then.
Yeah.
The reality is we're all going to end up in the grave. And so and Bitcoin's not. Like, Bitcoin is timeless. It will be around in 100
Yeah.
years. It will probably be around in 500 years, where you won't. And so, again, lowering that time preference, what are you doing to think about passing on that Bitcoin from the grave? And so Pete's done this successfully with 3 clients over the last handful of years, where they've unfortunately gotten ill or they've gotten old and passed on. And there's nothing worse, of course, for the family to be thinking about asset protection and all that sort of stuff when they're trying to mourn a loved one. And so the Bitcoin advisor is kind of that shoulder to lean on when shit's tough and you don't know what to do. Um, you know, Not everyone's wife or husband is across all of the things that they need to be when it comes to storage of Bitcoin. And so, again, that's where the Bitcoin advisor steps in and says, we'll be that helping hand. We'll build an estate planning protocol that sits behind your will, that gets executed should something go wrong. And so, in that tough moment for them, they've at least got someone to call, someone who can look after them and make sure the Bitcoin goes to where the beneficiaries or where the person wants their Bitcoin to go to.
Yeah. Just on that, I've had Peter Dunworth on the channel as well. You can check that video out. I really grilled him in regards to
So
the
you should.
collusion. Like, there's no possible. Absolutely. We need to ask questions. So for anyone interested, watch that video or the video with Andy as well, talking about self-managed super funds, but with the Bitcoin advisor. They really do check out. I'm very selective of who I will bring up. But for people, even if you just need a bit of advice, I don't get anything for it. Just reach out and have a free chat with these guys. I think that's absolutely important. You can talk to Chris, Peter, Andy, Luke Broyles.
We're all more than happy to chat. Our number one goal at Bitcoin Advisor, and this is what one of the things that helped me join the team, was the number one goal at Bitcoin Advisor is to get Bitcoins off exchanges. We don't care how that happens, whether you use us or you don't use us, just get them off the fucking exchanges. Like, that's all we care about.
Yeah.
If you look at our website, we've got a comparison chart that shows all the services that we offer. That's our IP. That's literally everything we do. If you don't want to use us and you want to do it yourself, use that as a checklist. Go to that website, have a look at the things that we offer and say, am I meeting this? This is the gold standard in terms of, custody of your Bitcoin. If you look at all those things and say, fuck, that's a lot of stuff. I don't think I have the expertise, or I don't want the accountability, or I don't want the responsibility of managing all that. Come to us. We'll help you, but we'll charge you a fee. If you don't want to pay the fee, at least have a look at that and try to strive to get to some of those things. Most people look at it and go, I can't do that. Like, I don't have the time. I've got my own life. I've got family. I've got kids. I've got my own job. This is a full-time freaking job. And again, that's why we exist, to help people like that simply just don't have the time or are concerned about some of these risks. What we've found is a lot of people are pretty bad at first understanding risk, and then second, mitigating against it. And so that's our job. Like, our job day in, day out is to look at the market, to understand all these things, to understand the risks, and to come up with the best practices to mitigate against them. That's a full-time job, thinking about that stuff. Pete's been doing this for 30 years. Like, you don't just slap this together at willy-nilly. And if you understand the value of Bitcoin, and this isn't to say, you need to have 100 Bitcoin or you need to have heaps of Bitcoin. If you understand where Bitcoin's going, even 1 Bitcoin, even 0.1 Bitcoin is probably worth securing for 100 years.
100%. Yep. I will always link the Bitcoin Advisor link below in my description, always, so you can find it and you can reach out to the team for everyone watching. So another question for you, obviously, with CoinStop being a hardware reseller, what would be your recommendation for someone for a cold wallet? We don't need to talk about your setup, but if they just want to get a single sig, or straight away they just need to get coins off the exchange, number one goal, what would you recommend? Maybe an easier option and maybe something that's a little bit more technically involved, but what are the gold standards at the minute?
Yeah, look, everyone will have their flavor of choice. I'm fairly agnostic in that sense. Like, there are obviously some options that are better in some regard than others. But generally, making the step towards a hardware wallet is already, it's like going from 0 to 1. Like, it's a huge leap in security, even if you choose, one of the subpar options, in the sense that, it won't appease the hardcore maxis, like something like a ledger device. They've obviously, they have their own problems, but still, moving to a ledger device is leagues better than leaving it on a crypto exchange or putting it on your desktop or putting it on your phone on a hot wallet. That's just asking for trouble. It's a matter of, it's a matter of when, not if, you're going to lose those coins by doing that. An exchange always works until it doesn't, and they don't give you fair warning of that. It's not like, hey guys, we're going to rug you on July 18th, 2032. Like, one day they work, 1 minute they don't, and that's just how it goes. And so, you can be protected forever and think, there's nothing ever gone wrong, but then it just takes one little slip up to lose everything. So the downside risk of losing 100% of your Bitcoin is just too great for me to say, I want the convenience of having a login and a password to be able to access my Bitcoin. I don't care if I have to plug in a device, enter a PIN, and do all this extra stuff. I can sleep easy at night knowing that my Bitcoin will never be hacked off an exchange because it's not on there. So, I don't really have a preference to one brand or the other. Personally, I like the Bitbox 02, which is a company from Switzerland. I think their device is pretty cool. They have a Bitcoin only version as well. So, it ticks that box for the maxis. It's open source. It has all those kind of principles that you like it to have. Whereas, maybe Ledger is not the best in that regard. They're closed source. They delve in all the shit coins. But still, I'd rather someone move to a Ledger and then, go down the path of getting to maybe a cold card or a foundation device later down the track when they're a bit more technically savvy. But at least their Bitcoins are off exchanges. So that's kind of my advice. There's, as long as it's one of the reputable hardware wallet manufacturers that have been around for at least a handful of years, Ledger, Trezor, Bitbox, Cold Card, all these are probably going to get most people pretty happy. It's like smartphones, right? What's the best smartphone? Well, fuck, they all make phone calls. They all take text messages. They all have app stores. At the end of the day, what's the difference between an Apple and a Samsung? Very little.
Well, Apple's just better.
Well, brand recognition. Maybe you like being in that walled garden of Apple where all your devices are Apple. They all connect to each other. Like, it's convenience, right? But
it is convenience.
The hardcore
That's why
Linux open source guys would be shaking in their boots if they were to use an Apple device. So horses for courses. Everyone has their flavor of choice. I can't tell you what's right or wrong. I can tell you what I think and what I'd do. But at the end of the day, moving to a hardware wallet is a significant step in your security.
Yeah, cool. What I'll do is put CoinStop in my description. I'm always going to link CoinStop now in my description for hardware wallets.
Thanks, mate.
Now, potentially, we can organise another discount code for that. Also, one thing is, don't store your seed phrase on paper. Either you steal, this is like $6 off Amazon, very fucking cheap to be able to do it, and then you just get letter punches. Or a company that I'm a huge advocate for is Seedor as well. I think they're a great product. They're linked below as well. But whatever you do, don't put it on paper. Get your keys off the exchanges. Now, a couple of questions for you, and it doesn't need to be Bitcoin related. I'm a massive reader. I love reading. Do you have some books that have changed your life or you'd recommend or go to? Like, I don't know if you're a reader much yourself, but if you were to recommend a book to somebody, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm more of a podcast kind of guy, but I have read some great books over time. Oh gosh, one of my favorites is oh gosh, I might be fumbling the title. By Robert C. Cialdi, I think his name is. It's The Art of Persuasion, I think it's called.
Yep.
The Power of Yes, or something like
Fantastic.
that. Um, those keywords will get you to where you need to.
Yep.
But that's a really cool one on kind of like the psychological side of how to convince people to say yes effectively. So for anyone out there that runs a
Yep.
business or is just interested in psychology, um, that one was really eye opening for me. A lot of the stuff was perhaps not that mind blowing because I was already interested in it and I'd already practiced a lot of that stuff. But it was just kind of coincidental. Like I've never studied psychology or anything like that. I just was interested in it, and I always find life as a
Yep.
bit of a game. So I'd always try to like, you know, play it in such a fashion.
Level up.
But that one was really cool for me. I really enjoyed that. Like some other classics, like Sapiens or any of Yuval's work is pretty interesting. Um, Obviously, like nowadays, a lot of my time is spent researching Bitcoin because I've just fallen down that rabbit hole and I'm absolutely crazy about that. So the Bitcoin standard is kind of like my go-to recommendation. Just
Yeah.
because, to be honest, I almost wish it wasn't called the Bitcoin standard because it doesn't really talk about Bitcoin that much. Um, it honestly, it's
Yeah.
just a great primer for how economics work, or how it doesn't work and hasn't worked over human history. So that's a nice one for anyone that wants to kind of understand the journey of where we've come from, going back to the Roman times all the way until, modern fiat. I find that one really cool. Obviously, Daz's book is huge. There's just so many great Bitcoin books. I've got Lynn Alden's
Yeah.
book on my
Broken money.
on my shelf, waiting to be read. But yeah, I'm not a huge reader. I find it, I I've recently realized that I, I've got ADHD. I never really understood it as a child, or nor did I get
Yeah.
diagnosed, and I'm not disappointed. I love the way I am, and it actually
It's a fucking
it's a
superpower,
fucking
bro. It's the
superpower.
fucking best,
But
man.
reading is one of
I
those
love
things
it.
that's difficult because you really do need to get into the zone and kind of get stuck on that. Whereas I'm a madhouse. Like this is why I work on 6 different things at once, because I'm fucking
Yeah.
crazy. And so my output is ridiculous when I'm working at a high level, but it's short
Yeah.
bursts. So I'll do 30 minutes on
Yeah.
Bitcoin Alive, and it'll be like the equivalent of 2 hours for a regular person of work. But then I got to go work
Yeah.
on Bitcoin Advisor because I just need to freshen up,
Yeah.
and that's just my ADHD. It's just my personality. It is what it is. And like I said, I
Yeah.
love it. I wouldn't change it for a thing. So yeah, reading is one of those things that is tricky for me.
Yeah. Well, hey, for anyone else that's interested, like I love books, so I could give a million recommendations, but a book that Iman Gadji that I heard recommend on a Frankie Lee podcast was Transurfing.
Okay.
I just started reading that last night. Fucking really cool. Like I'm only at the start. I've probably only got about an hour into it. Really incredible book. So I'll keep an update on that one there. But what you're saying with the Bitcoin standard is, I think Safety got it right with his 2 other books, Principles of Economics and the Fiat Standard, where he took Bitcoin out of the title of the equation. That's probably what made this book not become mainstream. And I think that's probably where Lynn Alden's gotten it really good. Like I'm only up to page 90. Like Lynn Alden's
It's a
book
thickie.
is like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like it's thicker than that. Like it's absolutely massive, and it's probably one of those books that takes a while to be able to disseminate and have that information sink in because it's so intense, but such a thought leader and lays it out so well. So I'd recommend that one as well. For anyone interested in being present, the book The Power of Now was a book that changed my life at one stage. Final thoughts, Chris. What would you like people to take away? A little bit of philosophical insight. What's exciting for you? The floor is yours. It's whatever you'd like to say.
Oh, look, we've touched on a lot of different subjects, and it's probably been a bit chaotic at times. But at the end of the day, you need to kind of just do you, Go on the path that works for you. I don't like to try force things upon people. I like to let them kind of do it in their own capacity, because it needs to come from the internal. That's the biggest driver. Like, if you've got the passion and the drive internally, then you'll get shit done. And that's kind of how I've gone down this entrepreneurial rabbit hole. I just said, I want to get this shit done, and I kicked myself up
Yeah.
the ass and made it happen. And suddenly the chips are starting to fall, right? But yeah, just Bitcoin is just so important. It's the most important piece of technology that we've got. So I dare say, spend 10 hours at least looking at some high level stuff and see if it piques an interest. Hopefully it does. And then you might extend that to 100 hours. And before you know it, you might revolve your whole life around it. I think it's one of the most selfless things you can do, because you're thinking 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And I would like to see humanity be more like that. If you go back and look at history, people built buildings that took hundreds of years, knowing they'd never see the end result. Like the great modern example, perhaps, is the La Grada. I think I'm saying La Grada Familia in Barcelona, the big church there. That's being built for like 300 years or something. Like, the original people who started
Wow.
that project would have no fucking idea what it looks like today, but they still built it and they still worked on it because they understood the higher mission. Now, I'm not a religious person or anything like that. I'm just using that as an example of low time preference. So I think Bitcoin is a bit like that. Like, the things that we're building now, we might not even get to really enjoy in that sense. But we know our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids will hopefully live in a much more prosperous world than what we live in currently. So that's the thing that kind of excites me. But yeah, just, we live in this fast society, fast economy, where everyone wants instant gratitude, instant gratification, and Bitcoin humbles you in that sense. You don't get that. People go, "Oh, buy Bitcoin. Why isn't it up 20%?" It's just like, that's not the right it's not the right attitude to have.
Yeah.
We're changing the world here. But yeah, I'd probably just leave it at that.
Instead of leaving it at that, something that I really wanted to ask you about is, why are you not looking at the price? Like, you haven't looked at it for a very long time. Let's touch on that. And then I want to say a few things. So everyone, bear with us. This is going to be pretty fucking interesting.
Okay. Look, the origin story of that is effectively, it was just before New Year's 2021. I kind of put a call to arms out of my Twitter. I'm not that famous or that popular. I've only got a few thousand followers, and back then it was probably even less. But I basically put the call to arms out. Hey, does anyone want to see how long we can not check the price of Bitcoin in terms of the fiat number? And obviously no one responded. I don't have that many fans, or no one's as crazy as me. But that didn't deter me. I just said, fuck it. All right, I'll do it. So I started January 1,
Yeah.
2022, and basically thought, all right, let's see if I can reach a year. Let's see if I can reach a year of not checking the price of Bitcoin. Now, obviously, I have an idea of what it is, and I see the sentiment and all that sort of stuff. So, I have a range generally at any given time. Sometimes that range tightens, sometimes that range expands. But I don't know today's price. I don't know yesterday's price. I don't know last month's
Today's prices. No, I'm kidding.
I'm at the point now where I simply wouldn't believe you anyway. Like, if you said to me it's 100 grand, I'd just say, I don't care. I don't believe you. Like, I would obviously be able to kind of look at sentiment and would kind of go, well, everyone's going crazy, so maybe you are actually probably in the right ballpark. But if you said to me it's at 5 grand, I'd be like, all right, cool. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is dollar cost averaging every single day. It doesn't change my strategy. It doesn't change my tune. For me, it's just noise. And I know I'm an outlier here. And for a lot of people, they're here for speculative value. They're here to get rich. They're here for number go up, all that sort of stuff. I'm not. I've never been like big on money, big on getting rich. I'm more of a I care more about my principles and my morals. Those are the things that make me rich internally. I know that hanging around Bitcoin and Bitcoin being the most important piece of technology in human history, I will get rich. Like, it's just the virtue of hanging around this thing. So I don't need to worry about it. Like, I'm comfortable. I get to do what I love. I'm not living in a fucking mansion. I'm living in a little 1-bedroom shack surrounded by trees, and that's exactly how I want it.
Yeah.
I grow a little veggie garden. I don't have neighbors. Like, I got a neighbor 200 meters over there, and fantastic guy, don't get me wrong, but we don't need to converse. And I don't like that kind of living right next to each other. So I've got everything I want. I
Yeah.
have a fantastic partner. I've got a great family. I've got amazing friends in Bitcoin and who I've met through life. So, like, I don't need to be more selfish than that. There are far more people in worse positions who, can't put clean water in their bodies. So why do I need to, step on the next bloke so I can earn a 5% trade and get rich? Like, that's just, for me, that's high time preference. That's small brain thinking. And so, yeah, I went on that no checking price journey for a year. I managed to succeed. I got to the end of the year and I thought, okay, it's cool. There were a couple of hiccups along the way. Like, people didn't take me seriously initially, and they would say, "Oh, the price is 30,000 or whatever the price was at that time," thinking I was kind of fucking around and joking. And I was like, "No, I'm
Yeah.
genuinely serious. Like, please don't tell me the price." And now people respect
Yeah.
that. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm still on Twitter. I'm still online. So you kind of have to be clever, and you can mute certain words. You get good at scrolling past charts very quickly. Like, if you've seen a trading view chart, you
Yeah.
know where to look to see the certain things. So if I want to avoid the price, if I see a chart, I just scroll and I don't absorb that information.
Yeah, all those links are below. We'll send people to your Twitter as well. A lot of information on there. Have a look at the speakers. You're going to continue to drop them. Everyone, enjoy the video that pops up. It's been an absolute pleasure. Be blessed. Peace.